everybody, welcome back to another video, and yeah, I know what you're thinking. This show is about movies, Lucas. Why are you doing a video about books in a show about movies? Well, there's a story to that, because today we're talking about movie novelizations. What's a movie novelization, you may ask? Well, it's pretty much movies for poor people. A movie novelization is pretty much just a book adaptation of a movie. I don't know what else to say. They've been around since the mid-70s to now. They still do them. They certainly aren't as popular. The only ones they really do are for just Marvel DC movies. They aren't as popular as they used to be, but still, they're still out there, and they've been thriving for almost 40 years now. So I thought I'd do a whole episode on them, because why not? I want to torture myself. So you're going to have to go through the torture with me. Have fun! Now there's thousands of these out there, and while I may not be able to read them all, I'm going to try and read as many as I can, so see you when I'm done!
Several days later. 6 months later. Much later. Much later.
What?
So much later that the old narrator got tired of waiting and they had to hire a new one.
And done! Oh my god! Oh, and if you're wondering why everything's so dark and you can hear explosions and there's fire everywhere, well, it's been 25 years, somehow I haven't aged, since I began reading, and in that time a hyper-intelligent race known as the Zeptons invaded Earth and are controlling everybody. Me and another 36 humans are the only survivors left.
Open up!
For the last time, you stupid scumbags, get out of here! Okay, looks like I'm gonna have to use the invisible remote to tune this stuff out. Okay, that's good. That's good, and that's good. Perfect! Alright, let's begin. There were plenty of good novelizations that I read, so I'm really hoping to no. Yeah, not starting with a good novelization. World hates me. The Hulk. 2003. Movie novelization. I decided to rewatch the film and compare which one's dollar. Tough choice, but this is dollar. Now, you might think I'm joking. Nothing can be duller than, well, here's and then. But something can be duller. This can. It, no joke, takes 150 pages of this, 330-page book for, well, Bruce Banner to become the Hulk. Yeah, almost halfway through the book, until we get the green M&M on Shrekoids. And that wouldn't be a problem if there was good build-up to it, but just like the film, it's all just boring blabbering about nothing. And no, I can't blame the book on that necessarily. It's a novelization of the most boring movie I've seen in the history of, well, movies as a whole, but still, this book can be its own thing. There were junior novelizations that were based on this movie that were better because they did their own thing. Their own thing. They actually tried. They didn't directly copy that movie because everybody apparently really enjoyed it. They introduced the Hulk very fast, and those were excellent novels. Those were junior novels for children 6 to 9. This is meant for 12 and up. When a book for ages 6 to 9 entertained me more than an actual full book for actual people who enjoy the Hulk and enjoy Bruce Banner and don't just want a fun little read that'd take a day. You know what? I expected more. Peter David wrote this book. Yes, the Peter David. The guy who helped Stan Lee write his biography, his memoir, whatever you want to call it. Excellent book, by the way. Highly recommend it. Other novelizations, including the entirety of the Spider-Man trilogy, and excellent comics and graphic novels. Yet he also wrote this. I have no more words. Let's just move on to the next book. Oh, actually, before I continue, I just want to make a hilarious side note. When I got the junior novelization, I got it through Amazon, the author was literally listed as Bruce Banner. No, this is not a joke. Here's a picture. This is the only book Bruce Banner's wrote. I guess they gave no credit to the writer. The cover literally actually says James Schamus wrote it, but I highly doubt that because he was the writer of the screenplay for the movie. So, oh my god. There's an actual author named Bruce Banner out there, and this isn't just a joke or a ghostwriter excuse. I'm just gonna roll around in circles laughing. Oh my god, this is just hilarious. I actually just looked up to see if there is a Bruce Banner author. No, there isn't, but there is a real David Banner who is a best-selling author. And you may ask, okay, that's a bit pointless, it's a completely different name, but if you've seen the 70s Hulk TV show, you'd know that technically was Bruce Banner. They just changed the name, so technically... Oh my god. Okay, this time I'm not kidding. Let's actually move on to the next book. I've spent way too much time lingering on this terrible book. Those books being Gremlins 1 and Gremlins 2, The New Batch. Why did I choose these books out of so many? Because they're the weirdest movie novelizations I've ever seen. Now, I think these two books are the first books that I could say are so bad that they're good. Yes, I know that sounds insane, far-fetched for a book. Movies make sense, but for a book, how is that even possible? What could be wrong with the book to make it feel like that? Well, a lot of things. First of all, the hilarious writing. Don't believe me? Here's me reading a little excerpt from the book. Gizmo allowed himself to smile faintly. In fact, he always hated to see unlimited reproduction for the simple reason that it mathematically increased the chances of stumbling onto the final mystery solution. Consistent with this, he hoped Stripe and his 3 cohorts would not take the step right away. The best way to discourage their doing so, of course, was by making Stripe think he favored reproduction. And what Gizmo mused was the best way to delude Stripe into thinking he wanted them to reproduce now, by saying the opposite. No, since Stripe would automatically reject that as a ploy. In fact, the best way to convince his enemy that he favored reproduction was to seem to favor it. It was an elliptical line of reasoning, but with the devious Stripe, one had to be one. There is an old adage, Gizmo said. It says that opportunity should be grasped when it arises, or that moment will never occur again. So you think we should reproduce now? Stripe asked through narrow eyes. I am not your advisor. It just seems to me, and he gets cut off. God. If that doesn't make you laugh, I don't know what does. First of all, I never knew Gizmo could form full, proper sentences, clearer than me, probably. You know what? This is just hilarious. Also, apparently, this book states that the Mogwais are from space. Did the author of these books ever watch the movie? Or did he just make something up? Because this is seriously weird. The book also handles inappropriate scenes in a very weird way. They either change it up, like there was this one scene that they replaced, and the replacement was the diary entry of a guy who was trapped in a bathroom by one of the gremlins, and then there was another time where Hulk Hogan... it's a long story, and just in case mentioning that, or showing it for that matter, might be a bit inappropriate. It's a long story, it's a bit inappropriate for a kid's movie, and they decided to change it into... I don't even know how to explain it. These are the weirdest books or movie novelizations I've ever seen or read, for that matter. So, you know what? Let's just move on. This is getting weirder by the second. Now it's time to cover this paradox. What if there was a book adaptation of a movie that was an adaptation of a book? Because why not? Just confuse our brains. Just why not? This is what occurred with two Dr. Seuss classics, The Grinch and the other one that I've decided to be left unspoken for the most part for, well, too many reasons, actually. The Grinch somehow actually suffered this both times. Yes, with both adaptations of The Grinch, those being the 2000 Jim Carrey film, which I know a lot of people hate, but I enjoy. I'm sorry, I know, it's a fun film, alright? Oh, and the 2018 Grinch that sucked. Most critics agree with me. Will you cut it out? As you can imagine, both of them are terrible. Just like most movie novelizations out there, they have nothing new to add to the story of the Grinch itself. Very similar to the movie, so I can't say anything there. The writing's sloppy, and it really just felt very rushed just to get it out in time because, oh, the movie's gonna come out soon, we need to make even more money than we already have. Universal, you're money hungry, please stop. Now for the final book in this category. I forgot to mention, we're splitting this into 3 categories. I'll get to the other 2 next time. Next time as in 2 minutes from now. But anyway, for the last book in actual books category. Actual books category. You see, you walk over to a Barnes & Nobles, you have a non-fiction, you have children's picture books, you have graphic novels, and then you have actual books category. Okay, for the final book, Halloween. Why? Just look at the cover. This is worse than when they printed sticker labels where the word Halloween was written in orange marker on the Atari 2600 game. This literally pretty much has nothing to do with the movie, and to prove that, I'll literally just read the first sentence. The horror started on the eve of Samhain, in a foggy vale in Northern Ireland at the dawn of the Celtic race. If you can figure out how that relates to the movie at all, then I will give you a gold medal. I am not kidding. This first sentence makes it feel like you're reading anything but Halloween, actually. Well, that is the end of the actual books category. I still can't stop laughing at that. Anyway, that is the end of the actual books category. Now time to move on to picture books / really young junior novelizations, whatever you want to call it. Regardless, they're thinner than a piece of paper. Now I have a bit of a pile of these of more newer films, or at least they were new when I began reading. Like I said, it's been 20 years since the Zeppelins arrived at the start of the video. Regardless, these are primarily based on Marvel DC movies, and they're also primarily terrible. Now, I guess that is being a bit unfair. I mean, this book is literally a picture book. That's probably 20 pages, but it's to show. I mean, this decides to tell instead of showing, and it's not much of a problem, but it just gets so dull when you repeat it all the time. Here, once Dr. Connors had figured out the missing piece of the puzzle, he quickly got to work on his formula. He was very close to finally being able to grow his arm back, and he wasn't going to let anything get in his way. Notice how I dullened my voice at the end, because I was getting tired from reading this. These books are meant to teach little children how to read. And they do, but they should also be teaching them how to write, instead of having boring, dull sentences that put most children to sleep. Very helpful for mothers at night, but you get my point. It gets so boring. Anyway, I'm going to go through a few of these, and that begins with Batman v Superman Crossfire. Now, this is the only one in my pile here that isn't as thin as a piece of paper, but I just wanted to show this because it honestly feels like a 10-year-old wrote. Doesn't that mean I'm technically insulting myself? I just insulted myself. Oh. Well, anyway, this book is so sloppily written, and I was really hoping for something to come out of this. It's not really a movie novelization. It's kind of more of a side story, almost like a companion. It doesn't take place from the perspective of Batman or Superman, despite them being on the cover and a huge 8-page cover. Why do new even old junior novelizations always used to do this thing where on the front they'd have a sticker saying 8 pages in full color? What's so impressive about that? This has 20 pages in full color. What's so revolutionary, honestly? Anyway, this is so boring and dull. There's no character to it. And even as a very young boy, okay, 8, but you get my point. Even when I was a few years ago, when I was just getting into reading, I knew something was up. It definitely does a good job at showing, not telling. I'm like, yes. But that is the only thing I can compliment it about. Every other little thing in this book feels like it was rushed out just to tie in with the movie, and actually it was. Next, we have the Scholastic movie storybooks, those being Spider-Man Homecoming and Avengers Age of Ultron. And despite me bashing these other books, these are surprisingly good. The illustrations are really well done, and honestly, I really want to know who did them. They should be working on real, actual comics, not these Scholastic children's books. They cover the story really well, both of them. This certainly improved on it, Spider-Man Homecoming. This is still really good. I just feel it didn't cover the movie as well. It kind of rushed some parts, but what I mean is, you have full paragraphs here, and instead of having something like, I don't know, just flip to a random page, Dr. Connors watched in awe as his right arm grew back. His attempt to introduce the reptile's ability for regeneration to human DNA had worked. I just noticed half of the sentences here begin with Dr. Connors. Oh yeah, I took it out of the fire. Instead you have things like, Tony got to work analyzing the scepter immediately. Once he had figured out its operating system, he sent a message for Bruce Banner to meet him in the lab. You see, that has excitement. You are not reading like a robot, because not only is it not rushing through the story and pulling out random things out of nowhere. It has a reason to do this kind of stuff. The sentences are fluent, the story's very fluent, the illustrations are incredible. I mean, just look at the covers. If this doesn't scream great, I don't know what does. So, by all means, if you have like $5, I think I actually bought one of these. I'm pretty sure it was Homecoming for $4 brand new at a bookstore, which is an excellent price. If you have a few bucks to spare, then I highly recommend picking up one of these. They are both excellent, and if you have children, read it to them. This is an actual book. This is an excuse. Just like Amazing Spider-Man was an excuse and Spider-Man Homecoming was excellent. And for the final book, the best book of the bunch, even better than these MCU books, the Lego Movie, the official movie handbook. And this isn't a novelization of the Lego Movie. Actually, oh yeah, there is on the back, Lego Movie junior novel. Not sure if that's a picture book or a full-on book like this. This still isn't a full-on book. So you get my point. But this is more of an encyclopedia, but it's not an encyclopedia where you have a picture, all the stats. It's an encyclopedia with a story, incredible illustrations, hilarious comedy, which, honestly, I wouldn't compliment because it's a movie novelization, so you can easily just adapt the comedy from the movie. But this is new, brand new comedy that wasn't in the movie. Or at least most of it wasn't in the movie. And it's glorious. You even have this small comic of Where Are My Pants? Or Honey, Where Are My... You know what I'm talking about if you've seen the movie. And this book is so beautifully done. I don't know how to compliment it. You have so much... Oh, I can criticize it on one thing. There are a few instances where it feels a bit dull when there's dialogue. Like, for example, when Wildstyle is introduced right here. I'm Wildstyle, and you need to come with me right now. I'm not sure if that was the exact line in the movie, but I don't know why. It just feels the easiest bit, though most of the character introductions are, but other than that, everything is exhilarating. It really makes you feel like you are there, and even better, you get a little sneak peek of the Lego Movie in book form. Think about the first 10 to 20 minutes condensed into 6 pages with pictures placed everywhere. So I did read, okay, I will say this part is a bit, but that's not really a part of the book. Everything else in the book is great, and if you can find this, get it. It's excellent and a fun read for all ages. Okay, time for our final category. That is graphic novels and comic books. Now this is where it's at. If you want excellent movie novelizations, then graphic novels and comic adaptations are your go-to option for any adaptation of, well, anything really, not just movies. The first of these I will be discussing is The Mask graphic novel adaptation. Now, The Mask already was a comic character, me having one of his comics here for proof. So when a movie was announced, people were hyped. Despite it being a comedy movie, a lot of fans of The Mask still had hope, and it definitely lived up to what a lot of people's expectations were. It's an excellent movie. And then it produced the sequel that was the birth of the Antichrist, but, we don't really talk about that. Anyway, there was a 2-part comic adaptation of The Mask that unfortunately was destroyed when the Zeptons arrived. Oh, I'll just put this text, please. Oh, irritating me. But regardless, this is a really good graphic novel. There was a lot in the adaptation, or that wasn't in the movie, such as Peggy Brandt's death, a scene where Stan Liebkiss's watch was stolen, which might have been in the movie. I'm not completely sure. I haven't seen the movie in about a year or so. But I know there was added stuff to that at least, and there was a lot of dialogue changed, and you might have noticed I said changed, meaning some. Wouldn't that technically mean the rest is just a carbon copy of the mask? Yes and no. There are some parts, well, most of it is technically just a direct adaptation of the mask taken straight out from the film with very little new material, but it gives its own spin on it, its own character, its own pacing, and excellent art, by the way. Just thought I'd mention that. The art in this is great. To whoever the illustrator was, they did an excellent job. And all in all, if you can find this relatively cheap, just street price, I definitely recommend it. For our next book, we will be doing a kaiju adaptation. Get out of here! We will be doing a kaiju. Get out! We will not be covering Godzilla Awakening for the I don't know how many times I have to shoo that thing away. This is the 5th take. We will instead be doing a review of the graphic novel adaptation of Gamera, Guardian of the Universe. There's no escaping it, is there? No, I'm just doomed to have that keep coming every time I mention the word cop. Knew it. Right, that's it. You had a fun year with me. Hope you enjoyed it. Peace. Let's go. I'm gonna go check